Hey everyone, Reed here with Big Strong Book, author of Course of 1,000, now available on Amazon. And today we are talking about Caldé of the Long Sun by Gene Wolfe, Volume 3 of the Book of the Long Sun tetralogy, and the first half of this Epiphany of the Long Sun omnibus, which contains both this and then the final book in the series, Exodus from the Long Sun. Now, as we dive into things here, I just wanted to say, Caldé of the Long Sun, like Nightside the Long Sun and Lake of the Long Sun before it, presents an issue for the reviewer in that simultaneously not a lot happens, and yet many things happen. But as with any of Gene Wolfe's works, it is something that, on a first pass, you kind of have this difficulty, but I'm sure upon rereads, it is, especially when you know where the story is going and specifically where it ends, it then becomes easier to really dissect each part and take it for its own, even though all the parts of Book of the Long Sun, very similar to Book of the New Sun, are parts in service of a greater whole. Sure, you might have your favorite part, but it's really tough to review it and discuss it as its own work because it really isn't. Caldé of the Long Sun, there is development, clear development from beginning to end with a lot of these, with the characters, but yet it is a continuation from Lake of the Long Sun, and it although there's a kind of a break within the ending of this that caps things off, but yet there is still numerous strands that will go into Exodus from the Long Sun. In that, just as with Book of the New Sun, you could read it as 1,000-page book. Same with Book of the Long Sun. Granted, it's much longer. Well, apt title for that aspect of it, but it's like a 1,300, maybe 1,400 page, depending on the version, the editions that you read of it. But it's a 1,300 page to a 1,400 page long epic narrative. That's truly what Book of the Long Sun is. Now, with Caldé in particular, going into this, I was a little bit, I don't want to say hesitant, but a little bit nervous, because the tone online that you get from people who get to Caldé is that Caldé is a significant step down and that the plot stalls. While I wouldn't necessarily disagree that the pace of the plot, which from the first two books was already very, very slow, you really have to be patient with these books, even more so than other Wolfe novels. You have to be really patient, willing to just sink into the syrup that is the story. But with Caldé, I will agree that it slows way down from an already slow pace. So you really have time of just characters in rooms or in the tunnels walking and talking. And that was another thing. They're like, oh, the tunnels, just wait till you get to the tunnels. And it wasn't that bad. The tunnel scenes in this book were not bad. There was nothing that was bad within this book. See, that's the conundrum with reviewing any of the Long Sun books so far, is that if you described as somebody on the surface, plot-wise, nothing really happens in this. It's just a lot of characters. There's not a whole lot of action. There's a lot of characters just in rooms talking to each other, and that's what this is just talking, or they're walking and talking, or it's just a lot of that. And but through that is where characters are revealed, and characters are revealed, intentions are revealed in a very slow and deliberate manner, and sometimes in ways that don't completely make sense, like the character of Auk, and we'll get to him in a little bit. but again, this continues. Silk is the very same character that as he kind of let out of Lake of the Long Sun, and then he is starting to come into his own. He's both discovering his ultimate capability, but he's also still the same Silk, uh, as is affirmed through the ending of Caldé. Um, and I will say the ultimate champion of these books continues to be Orib. I mean, I think I had said in Nightside the Long Sun that you could very well make a case that Silk is the best character that Wolfe has ever written. At least I could make the argument from the works of his that I have read, which is not everything, I admit. Um, Orib, I think. Orib by Caldé the Long Sun. Orib, the black, he's described as a black Cho or Chow. He's essentially a big, the thing that comes to my mind is he's a big black raven who speaks, he speaks a little. And he's a constant throughout this. He's almost in every single scene of the book. And he's just a delightful character. And it's constant levity, but at the same time, the perspective of Orib, I can't believe I'm talking about literally a talking bird within this book. A bird who can only say a couple words at a time, and it's like, need food, want food, good girl, bad man. It's things like that, which he says. And it provides both levity in the moment, but Orib is, in many respects, he's kind of like, I don't want to say he's a stand-in for the reader, because he's not, but the kind of discombobulated way that things work within the whirl, within the city-state of Viron, is you need this bird to see it through in some ways. And we kind of get a little bit of Orib's perspective, not just the things he says, but we kind of go into his state of mind for a little bit, kind of halfway through this. But in terms of getting into what this book is about, what the plot is, well, it leads on from Lake of the Long Sun, in which this conflict that has been alluded to and has been simmering for a little while finally bursts out into the forefront. This conflict between the citizens of Viron and the Ayuntamiento, the ruling council, and there's a lot of there are a lot of troops that are known as that they're chems, and they're kind of initially on the side of the Ayuntamiento, but then a lot of them start to go over, and that's where one of the big difficulties, I think, with Caldé of the Long Sun is that in terms of character allegiances and loyalties, where the loyalties lie between characters, it's kind of hard to parcel out, because it does seem, and this isn't really a spoiler, but forgive me if some of you think this is, so I guess, we'll just do kind of spoilerish territory from here on out, so you've been warned. But characters, at the end of the day, they all, even though they're fighting each other, they're constantly, like, not only are they swapping sides, but everybody wants peace, and they're fighting each other just because it's almost like they need something to fight. They need something to rail against. Maybe that's the commentary that Wolfe is going to. I don't know, but they're all against. Even the soldiers that are like, so Maytera Mint, she kind of takes up a contingent and she becomes General Mint. So she's kind of, riding off with this huge kind of citizen soldier force, and she's fighting against these commanders that are sympathetic to Silk and to the cause. They're very, and there are the moments where Silk might be captured, and they refer to him directly as Caldé. They refer to him as, or they call him by that title. They all want peace. Even Quetzal, forget the exact name of his title. It's a very long title, but Quetzal, who's in many respects one of Silk's superiors in the within the kind of the Patera, the priestly order. Uh, he seems like he's against him, Silk, becoming Caldé, but he understands that that's what's best for Viron as a whole, for the world, for Silk to kind of embrace this symbol that has been placed at his feet. So he's not, but then he becomes one of Silk's closest allies, or or maybe he's just playing the politics game, and that's what so much of this is. And Silk is almost like a pinball within this book. He's constantly going back and forth. His aim is, I guess a pinball's aim is to score the most points. Silk is bouncing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, but he wants peace. He has kind of accepted this title of Caldé, which is not a binding title, at least not for most of this book. It's more just the people want him to become Caldé, this kind of generational leader. I don't know if the closest thing that you could pin it to is, so if it's something like the Pope, but it's not a Pope because I don't think it has a religious pretense. But the people refer to him as Caldé. They want to kind of reinstate this office that has been for pretty much vacant, or at least on the surface vacant, for 20 years. Silk is willing to accept that, but at the cost of peace. And he ultimately wants peace. He doesn't care about being Caldé. He doesn't care about the titles, about the power that an office might bring with it. But if that is the means to achieve peace, he is all for it. There's that interesting sequence at the end when they're in Blood's house, when he's talking to the counselor Pato, I think, and the councilman is laying on these huge terms of, because that's where the all of the forces, they ultimately are against these counselors, even though the counselors' forces, as they're all kind of going to the other side, they're losing that ground. The counselor, they want Silk to kind of renounce his title as Caldé. And Silk says, okay, I'm fine with that. I don't need to be Caldé. I never really wanted to. It was just kind of what people saw me as, and I accepted that. If that's kind of what the people wanted, and that's what would lead to peace, to a better life for us all. That's what Silk for. He's all for. He cares for his Mantion, and he cares for his. If you could then extrapolate that and then say that the Mantion is a parish, he's looking out for his congregation, for his people, for the citizens that he's grown up against and knows and loves. So if he has to give up this apparent title that, at least at the moment, because they're in a heated conflict, I mean, it has weight and it doesn't have weight. The word of Silk matters. There's that scene where he's kind of giving a speech through like a PA system on this ship. And obviously his word has weight because there's so much zeal behind him. But power, in some respect, does not seem to affect Silk. Ultimately showing, I think, that the heart of his character is not tainted. Even though, again, it seems like the god Paz is Eknida, or the facsimile of the Eknida figure kind of comes to him and tells him Paz is dead, but he doesn't let that affect him. We saw that kind of at the end of Lake of the Long Sun. The notion of the gods that he worships might not be real, but he can still take the lessons from them, but it doesn't change who he is as a person. That is affirmed through this, but now we see it through the lens of power, now that he has power. And you would think that for anybody in a position of power at the head of the movement, to then you're met with terms, and they say, okay, you have to relinquish this power. For many, that would be almost a non-starter. It would be so difficult for them to give that up, but not for Silk. So that was interesting. Then when it comes to the tunnel stuff, I didn't mind it. I found it was very humorous. The scenes between Auk and Chanil and Patera Incus, and Orib. Orib is with them for some of that, and then you have Hammerstone, who makes a return. Some of those other characters, and Auk he's almost, it's almost like he's tempted by Tartaros, who is this like demon dark god, or a blind god. I don't know if that's supposed to be representative of a satanic type character, but Auk is confronted with his demons, and but then he kind of disappears from the narrative after he tries to kill Silk, knowing it is Silk. He just kind of goes away for a while. So I'm interested to see Auk, where his character will ultimately end up, because of course he's got to make an appearance sometime at Exodus from the Long Sun. But as he's almost hallucinating his dead brother, he's hallucinating some other figures. The tunnel sequences are very fascinating, I think, for that reason, but I think that they will grow more fruitful, I think, for me, after I finish Exodus from the Long Sun, and then know, okay, where is Auk's character ultimately heading? And then I can appreciate the development more, the clear development of those tunnel sequences, knowing where his character ends. But now he's kind of in this limbo. Where is he? I don't know. It makes it a little difficult. But again, there was a lot of great humor within those as well. I think the humor and the way how these characters are so vivid and so alive, and that kind of, as I've said from the beginning, is the absolute strength of this story. You feel drawn into this world. It is a Dickensian world. It is Dickens, if he wrote science fiction in the late 20th century, in the 1990s. That is what this is. It is Dickens. So if you like the character work that Dickens is clearly capable of within his dozen or so novels, so you will find within Book of the Long Sun, and as it has continued to be evident into the third volume, and hopefully will continue as the fourth volume rounds it out. That is the absolute strength here. But again, it is still difficult, even as I've been talking for almost 18 minutes here. It is still difficult to put my finger on it. I know I love the characters. I'm invested in this world, but it's still so hard to discern what you think of it when there is so much to parcel through, and simultaneously it seems like there is not enough to parcel through. But it is within those characters, and understanding those characters, you can unlock this narrative and unlock this journey of Silk and where he's going and what he's doing, because after all, he's just a priest who wanted to save his parish, and now he still kind of has that goal, but now it's on a larger scale. Now it's just not saving the Mantion, it's saving Viron, but looking out for the people that he has always clearly cared about. But it'll be very interesting to see where this all wraps up, because again, Silk becomes Caldé at the end, and I think so he has risen to this position. And while I don't think the war itself has ended necessarily, I mean, there's no indication that it has completely ended, but it's almost like it has. That conflict which consumed Caldé of the Long Sun might be over. So where does that go? Where does that leave us in Exodus from the Long Sun? I'm not sure, but it'll be very interesting to find out. So, Caldé of the Long Sun, if you have read it, let me know what you think of it. And as always, I will see you guys next time.